So what's the difference between press release and hype? Well, press release said the Blazers-Rockets game was going to be a great matchup. Blazers had won 13 in a row, Rockets 22 of 23. Hype said this game is going to be off the charts. Believe the hype. Houston got the win. James Harden got 42 points, including 2 step-back threes to close it out. Rockets now own a 4-game lead in the Western Conference. Sarah Kustok, is it time to consider the Houston Rockets as the favorites to win the NBA title?
No.
No.
Until you tell me that Golden State is missing one of their top 4 players in the postseason, then that may be a consideration. I still don't believe that Houston is the favorite, but I love Houston. I love the way they're playing. I believe strongly in how they're playing, given the fact that a lot of it is very transferable to the postseason, the pace that they're playing at. They've slowed things down. It's been much more of a possession game. What they've done on the defensive end has now been sustainable throughout the entire duration of the season, which was a big question for them. And you've got 2 stars like Harden and CP3, what they can do in different points of attack offensively, how effective they've been in isolation. Their role players are doing their jobs. Clint Capella is great. I mean, the list goes on.
Another question for you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Who's the best team in the NBA? Forget the favorite. Right now.
The best team?
The best team.
I would probably say Houston.
Okay, because that's the same thing that I said.
CC has the exact same distinction. Golden State's the favorite, but Houston's the best team.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of their championships and because Nick mentioned that the historic portion of where Cleveland is headed. As far as Houston's headed, as far as 65 wins, there's only been 20 teams.
Only 20 teams have ever won at least 65 games. 15 of those 20 have won the title. So, and Houston is, I mean, Houston, if they go 8-3 or better, is going to get to 65 wins.
Now, the only thing that's not in that stat with those 15 teams that won a title is there's another team that won more than 65 games that didn't win a title, and that's Golden State. And that when they were up 3-1 on Cleveland, so they're part of that stat line. The teams that didn't win, that's the only thing that stops them from winning 3 in a row and be going for number 4. So, yes, this is the best team, but they are going against a team based on NBA history is one of the best teams in NBA history. That's what makes them the favorite in my eyes compared to who's the best.
I too, though, look at, with everything else aside, how they're playing. Golden State going to the title the past 3 years, winning 2 of those. That first year, they were looking for their first title. The second year, they were going for 73 wins. The third year, Kevin Durant just came to the team. He was hungry to get his first title. This is the 4th year. Not to say they don't have as much motivation, but what's driving them other than just being the competitors we know that they are, wanting to get another title? To me, Houston is just locked in.
Well, right. So there is on the, because we know the numbers this year say Houston's been the best team. They have the best record. They're 39-2 when their big 3 plays, Harden, Paul, and Clint Capella. They're 41-4 when it's just Harden and Paul. Like, forget the Clint Capella portion of it. We know that they have, I think it ticked down just a bit yesterday, so one of the 3 best offenses in the history of the league, as opposed to the best offense in the history of the league. But what they don't have is the experience. The experience, though, kind of cuts both ways, because that also means they are not going to be heading into their 4th straight 100-game season. They are not dealing with the nagging injuries that Golden State is dealing with up and down the roster. And the injuries thing, and we talk every year, man, injuries play a part. Think about how many championship or fringe championship contenders. This is the best 8 teams in the league. The Cavs, they've been dealing with injuries all year, including right now, Rodney Hood's out. The Oklahoma City Thunder, their best defensive player, done for the year in Roberson. The Spurs, the reason they're not in this discussion is their best player's been out. The Timberwolves, Jimmy Butler had knee surgery. The Celtics, Kyrie, and don't forget Gordon Hayward, and of course Golden State. That's everybody in the league except for really Toronto and Houston. By the way, who have the 2 best records in basketball? Toronto and Houston. Like, that does matter. And that is, and I'm not saying you guys are discounting that. So the injury factor and the lack of wear and tear over the last few seasons, I think applies. And I also just look at the Rockets and I say, man, they've played 29 games against the next best 8 teams in their conference. And they're 24 games. They're 21-3. Like, they have been they've been winning on the road, they've been winning at home, they've been beating the good teams, beating the bad teams. You can't poke, the only hole I can poke in Houston's roster is they don't have 4 Hall of Famers. Golden State's got 4 Hall of Famers in the prime of their career.
But I think at the end of the day, until the Warriors don't do it, the Warriors are still favored to do it, right? Even though they've got injuries and they're riddled with them right now, they've got you call it the pedigree the last couple of years. They've done it this entire season. They've been unstoppable. They've walked. It's almost been a cakewalk for them this whole season. Right. Rest them up, get those guys back until they don't do it anymore.
But the reason why you can make Houston the favorite is not only how they've played, but the style for which they've played. If you watch them play last night, one of my guys, you said I hate to say his name, Luke Betamute.
Luke Rashard Mabamute.
Yeah, that dude, number 12.
LRMM.
Yeah. But their ability, and I saw last night, Joe Johnson got 15 minutes. My guy Ryan Anderson is back. Like, their bench is so deep. So I believe right now, because Golden State's best lineup is when they play small ball. I believe Houston is better at small ball, and I believe they're better at closing out games that they figured it now out with Harden and Chris Paul. That's the reason why I'm so excited about Houston. They've changed the way they do things, and you mentioned the possessions are starting to slow down. A lot like playoff basketball, so it's not like they're going to get to the playoffs and the style's going to change. They're going to have like a 20, 25 game little experimental period where they have dominated the NBA, playing the style that is the playoffs.
And it's that type of depth that we often point to as a weakness in Golden State. But D'Antoni, I need some scoring. Joe Johnson, come on in. I need some toughness. Give me Gerald Green. I need a shooter in Ryan Anderson. Oh, he's not playing defense. You can continue to pull
the
different
coach
guys.
Talked about, man, I got to find minutes for Joe Johnson. I got to find some minutes for Ryan. Man, there is no coach in the league that has that type of luxury right now as far as the quality players, the quality shooters that they can put on the court.
To speak to that point, Nene getting hurt in a playoff run, I don't know, I think it was last year, last year, that was a big loss for them. Yeah. Nene was, according to the box score, DNP coach's decision last night. Like when it comes to finding minutes. And there's one other point that Houston has going for them when it comes to the matchup against Golden State. And there's a psychological component that I think matters. Golden State in this run has been challenged in 2 series. The one against the Thunder that they almost lost, and the one against the Cavs they did lose. What those 2 teams had was their best guys truly believed and would have passed the polygraph saying it, we're better than your best guys. LeBron believed he's better than Steph, or believed he's better than Clay, if you want to call it Draymond. And you know Kyrie said, I'm better than Steph. Same with Russ, thought he was better than Steph, and KD thought he was better than everybody else they got. When you've got Houston now, Harden can credibly say, I am better than you, Kevin Durant. And I don't believe this to be true, but I know Chris Paul believes he's been better than Steph Curry every day of his life. He's not, and I love CP3. He's not better than Steph. But Golden State, Houston does not have the, oh my gosh, what do I do here component with these guys, because they do believe we got the 2 best players.
But they have the reputation of, oh my God, what do we do here in the postseason? And that's going to point to Mike D'Antoni to get them ready, so that experience is not even a word that comes up when the media is surrounded.
But I think that's part of what they've shown. And I also think offensively, the way in which when you're in a playoff series, you're focused on one team, you're scouting one team, you're playing every couple days. You know this team inside and out. The best part of their offense is their ability to improvise. And that's what Harden does so well. That's what CP3 does so well. They're not calling plays. They're not calling sets. It's all about them making reads and making decisions. And it's a whole lot different having Chris Paul there as compared to what we saw.
Yeah, I believe where Harden is playing now and what he's doing, and we've seen this with the MVP, and when they get to the playoffs, I believe Harden's going to get those calls. I believe he's going to be shooting double-digit in free throws. Nick, who leads the NBA in scoring in the 4th quarter?
Right now it's LeBron.
Okay, and who's next?
I think it's James Harden.
James Harden and his free throw shooting. James Harden's also first in the NBA in first quarter scoring. So you talking about a guy getting him off and a guy closing them out. Like, that's who James Harden's been. So, favorite, best team right now, the Houston Rockets are playing the type of basketball that if you wouldn't be surprised if they hoisted the trophy at the end of the season.
Just quickly, the point CeCe made about Harden winning the MVP and how that applies to him getting calls in the playoffs, that if you're right on that, that is a huge differential from what Harden's dealt with the last few years. One of the reasons Houston has struggled in the playoffs is Harden leads the league in free throw shooting every year, and then the playoffs, the refs swallow their whistle a little bit. If he gets a regular season whistle in the playoffs, that ups his production 10-15%.
All right, Sarah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Everything shy of the way you said.
Hey, get her booked up, man.
No.
Hey, Brian, let's talk to some people. Whit, LA.
We're back after this. Stay with us. We have to deal with what's happening.
Sarah, you know her. Brooklyn, let's do this.